Sometimes, out of nowhere, your mind goes somewhere you don't want it to go. You're sitting with someone you love, maybe your parents, your partner, your child, and a quiet thought slips in. What if one day they're not here anymore? And just like that, everything feels different. The moment becomes fragile, almost like you're holding something you suddenly realize you can't keep forever. Nothing actually changed. They're still there, still talking, still smiling, but your mind has already stepped into a future without them. And what makes it strange is that you didn't choose it. You didn't invite it. It just appeared, like a reflex your thoughts perform without asking for permission. This isn't about distance. It's not about something going wrong. It's something deeper. It's the moment you become aware that the people you love are not permanent. And awareness like that doesn't stay neutral for long. It doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It starts to affect the way you feel everything else. Because no matter how much you care, no matter how careful you are, there are parts of life you cannot control. You can't pause time. You can't protect them from everything. You can't guarantee they'll always be here, and your mind knows that. So it tries to do something strange. It tries to prepare you. It creates moments you never asked for, scenes where they're gone, where you're left imagining the silence, the absence, the things you wish you had said, not because you want to think about it, but because your brain is trying to solve a problem that doesn't have a solution. How do I deal with losing someone I can't lose? So it rehearses quietly, repeatedly. Almost like if it visits that pain early, it won't hurt as much later. But that's the part your mind gets wrong. Because loss isn't something you can practice for, and imagining it doesn't actually prepare you. It just creates the feeling of loss in a moment where nothing has been lost. A kind of pre-grief. A simulation of absence, while presence is still right in front of you. And the more real it feels, the more your present moment starts to fade. You're still with them, but part of you has already left. And that's where the weight comes from. Not just the fear of losing them, but the feeling that you're not fully here while you still can be. Sometimes it doesn't even start with fear. Sometimes it starts with love. You're laughing with someone, or listening to them talk about something ordinary, or sitting in a moment that, from the outside, looks completely safe. And then a thought appears. This will not always be like this. It doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't feel dramatic. But it changes the temperature of the moment. Suddenly you start noticing everything more carefully. The sound of their voice, the way they move their hands, the small expressions you usually never think about, as if your mind is trying to memorize them. And sometimes that turns into something else, a quiet guilt. For the times you were distracted, for the times you were physically present but mentally elsewhere, for the moments you didn't realize would matter this much until your mind decided to replay them. You start thinking, am I doing enough? Will I regret not appreciating this more? What if I don't remember this the way I should? And slowly, love begins to feel heavier than it used to. Not because the love changed, but because fear quietly attached itself to it. But here's something important to understand. This doesn't come from negativity. It doesn't come from weakness. And it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It comes from attachment, from meaning, from having someone in your life who your mind has labeled as important for your emotional world. The deeper the connection, the more your mind tries to protect it, even if that protection takes the shape of imagining loss. Because the brain doesn't only respond to reality, it responds to significance. And when something feels significant enough, the mind starts treating it as something that must be guarded, even if there is nothing actively threatening it. This is where psychology becomes interesting. Your brain is constantly trying to reduce uncertainty. It prefers known pain over unknown possibility. So when it cannot guarantee safety, it simulates danger, not because it wants to suffer, but because uncertainty itself feels uncomfortable. So it creates a scenario it can mentally explore. If I imagine it, I might be more ready. But emotional reality doesn't work like that. You can't rehearse absence while staying emotionally untouched. You can't simulate loss without temporarily experiencing the shape of it. So what you're left with is something subtle but heavy, a feeling that doesn't belong to the present moment, but still lives inside it. And over time, if this pattern repeats, something else happens. You stop fully arriving in moments. You're there, but also slightly ahead of it, listening, but also scanning, laughing, but also observing the ending of the laughter, as if part of you is always preparing to leave early. But life doesn't actually happen in preparation. It only happens in presence. And this is where the shift can begin, not by forcing the thoughts away, not by arguing with them, not by trying to silence something your mind is using to protect you, but by noticing what it is doing. Because the thought itself is not the problem. The problem is the direction it pulls you in. So instead of asking, "Why am I thinking this?" you can gently ask, "Where is this thought trying to take me?" And more importantly, do I need to go there right now? Most of the time, the answer is no. Because in the present moment, nothing is actually missing. Nothing is actually ending. Nothing is actually changing in the way your fear suggests. There is only a person in front of you, a conversation happening, a moment unfolding, and your mind, even while imagining distance, is still sitting inside closeness. That's the strange contradiction. You don't lose love when the thought appears. You lose your sense of being inside it. And maybe the real practice is not removing the thought entirely, but refusing to follow it every time it appears, letting it exist like background noise instead of instruction. Because the truth is, this fear doesn't actually protect the relationship. It doesn't extend time. It doesn't prevent loss. It doesn't improve anything in the future. It only changes how the present feels, and the present is the only place where love is real. Not in imagined endings, not in rehearsed goodbyes, not in scenarios that haven't happened, but here, in the ordinary moment that feels too simple to matter, until you realize it's the only moment you ever actually have. So the next time that thought appears, what if one day they're not here anymore? You don't have to fight it. You don't have to believe it either. You can simply notice it, like a cloud passing through something steady, and then gently return to their voice, to the moment, to the life that is still happening right now. Not forever, not guaranteed, not controlled, just here. And sometimes, that is the only place love has ever needed you to be.